Sable Ashworth had been Luna of the Ember Hollow Pack for exactly 11 months, when Alpha Draven Cross stood before the entire pack and rejected her. He did it in front of everyone, in the great hall where she had once been welcomed with flowers and warm applause. There was no private conversation, no warning, no gentle word. He simply spoke the ancient words that every wolf feared to hear. I, Draven Cross, reject you, Sable Ashworth, as my mate. The room went silent. Somewhere near the back, a woman gasped. Sable felt her whole body go cold, as if someone had poured ice water down her spine. She had heard stories about rejection, about the pain that came with a broken bond, but nothing had prepared her for the way it felt, to hear it out loud, in front of people who used to smile at her. Her knees wanted to give out, but she did not let them. She had learned long ago that falling apart in front of an audience only made the pain worse, because then, people remembered you not for your strength but for your collapse. So she stood there, spine straight, chin lifted, even as her heart shattered into pieces too small to count. She left Ember Hollow that very night. She was 7 months pregnant, carrying nothing but a duffel bag, a little bit of money, and a heart that felt like it had been carved out and thrown away. She did not look back at the pack house, did not look at the moonlit trees she had once loved, did not let herself cry until she was far enough away that no wolf could hear her. 5 years passed. Sable settled in a small town called Thistle Creek, a quiet place where humans lived their ordinary lives with no idea that wolves existed at all. It was exactly the kind of town she needed, far from packs and politics, far from anyone who might recognize the woman who used to be a Luna. She opened a small bakery on the corner of 9th Street and Larch Avenue, and slowly, carefully, she built a new life from nothing. Above the bakery was a small apartment, and every morning 3 children came thundering down the stairs, laughing and pushing each other toward the kitchen table. They were triplets, 2 boys and a girl, and they had been born just weeks after Sable arrived in Thistle Creek. Their names were Wren, Bram, and Ivy, and each of them had inherited the same storm-gray eyes as their father, though none of them knew yet how much more of him lived inside their blood. Sable raised them with flour on her hands and love in her voice. She worked long hours at the bakery, then came home to homework and bedtime stories, and skinned knees that needed careful bandages. She dressed her children in clothes from the thrift store down the street, and she made sure they never went to bed hungry, even on the nights when her own stomach growled with emptiness. She built her life around one rule, which she repeated to her children so often that they could recite it back to her without thinking. We don't need anyone who didn't choose to stay, she told herself. She believed those words completely. Most days, she almost did. What Sable did not know, what she could not have known, was that the night of her rejection had not truly belonged to Draven Cross. On that very evening, a woman had slipped into the pack house kitchens, a witch working for a rival pack that wanted Ember Hollow's territory for itself. She had laced Draven's wine with a rare and dangerous oil, a mixture of wolfsbane and a compulsion herb that could bend even an alpha's will. The poison was designed for one purpose only, to force him to break any bond that stood between the rival pack and their goal of weakening Ember Hollow from the inside. Draven had fought it. He had fought with everything inside him, every ounce of strength his body and his wolf could offer, and still he lost. He remembered every terrible second of what happened next. He remembered watching his own mouth form words he did not want to say, feeling his own voice betray the woman he loved, while some dark and foreign force held his mind in a cruel grip. He remembered the look on Sable's face just before she walked out of the hall, and that memory had haunted him every single night since. For 5 long years, Draven searched for her. He searched with a desperation that frightened even his closest friends. He sent trackers to every territory he could think of. He followed rumors that led nowhere. He checked bus stations, small towns, distant cities, anywhere a scent trail might linger. But Sable had been careful, and the trail always went cold at the same place, a bus station 3 states away from Ember Hollow, where she had vanished into a crowd of strangers and never reappeared. The breakthrough, when it finally came, arrived by accident. A trade envoy from the Human Council in Thistle Creek visited Ember Hollow's territory to discuss a shared water agreement between the 2 regions. As part of the meeting, the envoy brought a folder of photographs showing the town. meant simply to help the pack council understand the area they would be working with. Among the pictures was a candid shot of the town square, market stalls lined along the sidewalk, a small stone fountain in the center, children playing nearby. And in the corner of that photograph, slightly blurred but unmistakable to anyone who had once loved her, stood a woman with pale gold hair, holding the hand of a young boy with storm-gray eyes. Draven was on the road within the hour. He drove through the night without stopping, his hands tight on the wheel, his heart pounding with something between hope and fear. When he finally reached Thistle Creek, he found the bakery before he even needed to check an address. Something in him, some deep and ancient instinct, pulled him straight toward the corner of 9th and Larch. He stood across the street as the evening light faded, watching through the front window. Inside, Sable wiped down the counter with slow, practiced movements. Nearby, at a small table in the corner, 3 children sat doing homework, bickering gently over a shared eraser, laughing at something one of them had said. Draven counted the children. He counted their eyes. 3 sets of storm-gray eyes, so much like his own that his breath caught in his throat. Then the oldest boy, Ren, looked up. Their eyes met across the street through the glass, and something ancient and unmistakable passed between them, a flicker of recognition that no explanation could account for. It was the recognition of blood calling to blood. A few minutes later, Sable stepped outside to flip the sign on the door from open to closed. She turned, and she saw him. For one full second, 5 years of careful, hard-won calm went completely silent inside her. She felt 17 again, felt young and breakable, before she forced herself back into the strong, steady woman she had built herself into. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "They're mine," Draven answered. It wasn't a question. It was something closer to a plea wrapped inside a simple truth. "They were never yours," Sable said. "You made sure of that." Her voice did not shake, even though her hands, hidden behind her back, were trembling. She had imagined this moment 100 times in her mind, had rehearsed 100 different versions of what she might say if she ever saw him again, and she refused to let this moment turn into one of her nightmares. Draven told her everything, right there on the sidewalk, because he had promised himself long ago that if he ever found her again, he would not waste a single sentence on pride or excuses. He told her about the witch who had crept into the kitchens that night. He told her about the wolfsbane and the compulsion herb, about the way his own voice had betrayed him while his mind screamed in protest. He told her about the 5 years of searching, the sleepless nights, the endless roads, the hope that refused to die no matter how many times it seemed foolish to keep believing. He did not ask her to forgive him. He knew forgiveness could not be demanded, only earned, slowly, over time. He asked only for a chance to know his children, and for whatever small amount of time she might allow him, to prove that the man who rejected her in that hall had never truly been the man he actually was inside. Sable did not answer him that night. She closed the bakery door gently and walked back upstairs without another word, her mind spinning with questions she was not ready to answer. She did not sleep much that night, and she did not answer the next day either, when Draven appeared quietly across the street once more, careful not to intrude, simply present, simply waiting. Days turned into weeks. Draven found a small apartment 2 streets away from the bakery, close enough to be present, far enough to respect the space Sable so clearly needed. He never pushed his way into her life. Instead, he waited to be invited, and slowly, cautiously, invitations began to come. He showed up quietly to Bram's school play, standing at the back of the auditorium, clapping the loudest when Bram forgot his lines, and then remembered them again. He was there the day Ivy fell off her bicycle and scraped her knee, kneeling beside her with surprising gentleness, letting her decide whether she wanted his help or her mother's. He never once demanded to be called anything more than his name. He never once tried to force his way into a role he had not yet earned. Sable watched all of this from a careful distance. She watched how Bram, who used to flinch at loud, sudden voices, slowly stopped flinching whenever Draven was near, as if some part of him recognized safety in a way words could not explain. She watched Ivy fall asleep in Draven's arms during a fierce summer thunderstorm one evening, something no one but Sable herself had ever managed to do for her frightened daughter. And she watched Ren, sharp-eyed and guarded just like his mother, slowly decide, entirely on his own terms and in his own time, that this quiet, patient stranger might actually deserve a second look. It took nearly a full year before Sable's heart began to soften. It was not one single moment that changed her mind, but 1,000 small ones stitched together, quiet acts of patience and honesty that slowly rebuilt something she had thought broken beyond repair. The final piece came when Ember Hollow's council finally caught the rogue witch responsible for that terrible night 5 years earlier. She was found trying to repeat her scheme in a different territory, and this time, her plan was uncovered before it could cause more harm. She confessed everything under formal questioning, every detail matching exactly what Draven had told Sable on that sidewalk outside the bakery. Draven's own beta traveled personally to Thistle Creek to deliver the full written confession to Sable, placing it gently into her hands, without a single word of pressure or persuasion. Sable read every page twice. When she finished, something that had been clenched tightly inside her chest for 5 long years, finally, quietly, let go. She never returned to Ember Hollow to reclaim her old title. She did not need it, and she had long since stopped missing the crown that once came with so much pain. But she did, slowly and carefully, let Draven back into the small, fierce kingdom she had built for herself, above a humble bakery on the corner of 9th and Larch. He did not come back as an alpha demanding his place. He did not come back as someone she owed anything to. He came back simply as a father, one who had spent 5 long years proving, through ordinary days and small quiet gestures, that he had meant every word when he said he would never truly let her go. On a warm evening in early autumn, the 5 of them sat together around a small kitchen table upstairs, sharing a simple dinner Sable had cooked herself. Wren argued cheerfully with Bram about whose turn it was to wash the dishes. Ivy giggled at some private joke, only she seemed to understand. And Draven sat quietly at the end of the table, watching the family he had once nearly lost, grateful beyond words for every single ordinary moment. Sable caught his eye across the table and, for the first time in 5 years, she smiled at him without any trace of the old pain behind it. It was not a grand, dramatic ending. It was simply a beginning, built slowly and honestly, one patient day at a time. And for a woman who had once believed she needed no one who did not choose to stay, that quiet, steady kind of love, freely given and patiently earned, turned out to be exactly what her heart had been waiting for all along.